IVM. This episode of Mr. and Mrs. Binge-Watch is powered by Storytel.in, and this week the book that I'm recommending is that you and I should probably read together because it's a book that I've not yet read, but I'm going to binge and read this weekend. It's called Over the Top, A Raw Journey to Self-Love, and it's been written by one of my favorite guys on TV, Jonathan Van Ness. If you don't know who Jonathan Van Ness is, honey, you gotta watch Queer Eye right now. In fact, their new season has them in Japan, but there's already, I think, 3 seasons before that for you to binge watch on Netflix. I mean, I already love him so much. I love the way he talks. I love the way he styles. I love the way he dresses. I love the way he throws sass. So I totally can't wait to read his life journey. Over the Top, A Raw Journey into Self-Love is available on Storytel now. Log on to storytel.com/IVM to get a 30-day free trial as opposed to just a 14-day free trial. You've tuned into a show called Mr. and Mrs. Binge-Watch, and you were expecting a spoiler-free episode. So there are many spoilers on this episode. Kripya dhyan dijiye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Mr. and Mrs. Binge-Watch, and Janice is just jumping off the walls right now because her new show has just launched. It's called, I was going to say Social Media Stars. No, it's called Cheers to That with Janice, the second episode of which has just landed. And she just cannot stop talking about the show, Janice. Do you want to just get it out of your system again?
Are we doing this plug, is it?
Yes, fine.
Yeah, guys, please go to my YouTube channel. It's Janice Sequeira on YouTube. Okay, you can go watch an amazing season of Social Media Star. And if you want more content, I've also just dropped a new season of Cheers to That with Janice. The first episode had the lovely Dia Mirza, Diana Penty, Aditi Rao Hydari talking about girl gangs and friendship. And the second episode went a bit cuckoo because I had cuckoo Kubra Seth, cuckoo Jim Sir, cuckoo Arjun Mathur, and not so cuckoo Shreya Pilgaonkar, who literally Arjun and Shreya, I think at some point in that episode, started looking around and wondering what the is going on over here.
And Janice has never been this enthusiastic about this podcast ever. If you ever heard any of her earlier episodes,
Such an asshole.
You never seen her speak at that pace with that energy and that kind of enthusiasm for anything.
Bhai dekh, okay, I learned very early on कि मतलब खुद को promote करना is number one self-love. Okay, no one else is going to promote you. You gotta promote
Janice,
yourself.
but I am promoting you here. I started the conversation.
That's
right?
very benevolent of you and very generous. I have to show equal enthusiasm.
Yeah, but I'm
just go watch my shit.
Yeah, I just wanted people to know the level of enthusiasm you are, sort of
and
experiencing.
And now we will talk about what we really came to talk about, and this will be my tone for the rest of the episode. No, I'm going to maintain this enthusiasm level because the show we're talking about today is a show that we've both actually grown to really love. It's called Little Things, and yes, we know we're very late to the party because people have been talking about this show for the last couple of years, and for some reason Guha and I have never sampled it. It just looked like one of those shows that might not really be our cup of tea, except that when we started watching it, we're like, bro, ye to apni life story lag rahi hai on the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, the first season isn't as good as the first, second and third season. I mean, the show definitely evolves. The writing gets better. The acting gets better. The situations get a lot more relatable. In fact, the first season itself, I mean, reminded us so much of our relationship, right? Because the show is essentially about a couple, Kavya and Dhruv, who live in together.
Yeah.
They're both not from the city. They've both started living in together. So it's almost like they're adulting together.
Yeah.
Learning what it is like to set up home, what it is like to manage your finances, what it is like to maintain a relationship, maintain a household. And woven around that, of course, are the twists and turns that take place in their own relationship.
Yeah. In fact, like you said, Little Things is just something I've been seeing other people talk about and watch. And, I mean, clearly both Dhruv and Mithila Palkar, have this huge fan following online especially. So, I mean, their names kept popping up on Twitter from time to time, especially when a new season launches. And I remember watching the first couple of episodes of season 1, in fact, last year when season 2 dropped. And to be really honest, I really didn't get into the show as much and didn't watch beyond that. But when season 3 came out recently in November, it got such great reviews and lots of friends telling me to check the season out. And everybody said that the show really gets going season 2 onwards, which is why you and I sat down eventually to sort of soldier through the first season. But then as even the first season unfolded, we realized, I think, from the 4th episode itself that the show really has it's a really intelligent take on relationships. Of course, it's called Little Things for a reason because especially in season 1, it really isn't one of those romantic stories, which is nice. I like about it. It's got that complete Judd Apatow approach,
The easy kind of
the
feel
easy
good.
kind of. In fact, Love is a show created by Judd Apatow on Netflix, which is very similar in nature, except that on Love, what we see actually season by season is a couple going through all the stages of a relationship.
Yeah.
So in the first season of Love, it's just the two of them meeting, getting to know each other, opposites. They go through a lot of conflict. Second season, they begin to really date each other and realize how much they are, in love with each other. And in season 3, they take the relationship to the next level. I'm assuming over 4, 5, 6 seasons, it'll also go through an entire circle of eventually, breaking up or whatever it is that they have planned for the characters. What I liked about Little Things is that it takes you in the middle of the couple's relationship with each other. And it's about those literally little things that happen in a couple's lives that are not necessarily part of any storytelling narrative.
Yeah.
Like something as simple as one of the two partners being unwell and staying at home the whole day and them spending hours just trying to figure out what show to watch on Netflix. And those are the parts that you and I relate to instantly because, that's something we do, right?
Yeah, or for example, one of the people in the relationship constantly craving this one particular kind of food which you need to maybe go to a different part of the city for, or which you maybe need to travel a lot for, and finally that happening in one of the episodes, which is a mutton cutlet episode.
Yeah.
I feel like, where is this mutton cutlet available? And Dhruv, Sehgal, can you please take us to have this mutton cutlet, because I want to try this mutton cutlet now.
Yeah, I also like the fact that it's one of India's few web series where it's been written by the guy who's playing one of the lead characters.
Yeah.
It's a concept that's really popular in the US. Of course, stand-up comics on Amazon have done it with not so great results, I would think. I really like Pushpavali though.
I think Pushpavali is the only one out of a lot of those really mediocre shows.
Yeah,
that
but
came
then
out.
see over there, the writer-creator Sumukhi Suresh is creating a fictional character. I feel that Dhruv Sehgal is based a lot of the character on himself. So Dhruv Sehgal, I feel, has written the show with us I feel like when I watch episodes of Little Things, it's like the stories I'm watching on the episode are stories I'm being told at a party where I'm, running into friends after a long time. So it has that very lived-in quality about it. I also think it's a very intelligent show because even though, especially in season 2 and season 3, even though, it's trying to tell a very simple story about two individuals trying to make a relationship work. At one level, their conflicts are not really massive or major because they are two people who are already in love with each other. The conflicts are all extremely internal, personal, and, the kind of conflicts that actually drive couples apart in real life and not like in the movies or TV shows where everything is dramatic or, there is this big reason. So I'm saying while keeping that very basic element alive, I still feel there's a lot of intelligence that goes into crafting the episodes, especially in season 2 and 3.
I also like the fact that they take their time with all the episodes. Like, the show never feels hurried. The narration or the way the moments are kind of taking place. Like, for example, if Dhruv and Kavya are at a party where they're discussing multiple friendships or they're discussing what happened at work, they're taking their time. A lot of shows, what happens is it's like, okay, now you've cut to this scene and then the next scene, they're showing what's happening on the, what's the next part of the relationship. Here they're really taking their time with all of the moments. One of my favorite moments actually was in season 1 where Kavya and Dhruv end up at the vineyard and she's thinking about quitting her job, and he very patiently sits her down and does a pros and cons list. And again, you could have hurried that entire process, or it could have been a much more faster, pacier sort of episode. But the makers are very clear in what they're doing with their show. They want Kavya and relationship, and Dhruv's relationship to be the slow burner that you really invest in. You don't just invest in what is happening in their lives, you're also investing in them, their conversations, how they tackle multiple issues, which is why by the time you're reaching season 3 and now you're focusing so much more on each of their individual narratives, you're invested. Now you want to know what's also like what's happening in Kavya's mind. Like in season 3, as compared to maybe 1 and 2, where, almost all episodes feature the both of them going through a certain situation or, trying to deal with a certain issue. In season 3, there's actually a lot of departure where you see them alone a lot.
Yeah.
And
in fact, they're apart for most of the season.
For most of the season. And when they do
in fact, they're in a long distance relationship, and that's a very integral part of the season.
Correct. So the long distance relationship, this is something also that I feel like a lot of couples watching will relate to, because, we always talk about how when you're living together, and I know that this is true of Aniruddha and me also, there's this sort of codependency and fear. And, everyone talks about, long distance relationships, they never work, couples never make it through it. And you do feel symptoms of that in the third season as well, except that it's been dealt with so beautifully, because you also realize that from season 1 to season 3, they've shown Kavya and Dhruv themselves maturing into adults. Where they were teenager-ish in their type of behavior, maybe in season 1, where they were more fixated on things like cutlet or going on a short vacation or what kind of clothes they should wear or smaller conflicts at work. By season 3, they've evolved into what are we doing with our lives?
Yeah, which
Where does my
is
happiness lie?
exactly what makes it so authentic, right? I also feel that it's among the few Indian shows, and not a lot of Indian shows have actually had third seasons. But whenever they do, I hope this is the format they follow, which is that because the writers, mainly Dhruv, of course, himself, and his director is Ruchir Arun on the first 2 seasons. And on the third season, Ruchir Arun actually shares direction credit with Sumit Arora, who's a pretty well-known writer. What I like that they've done over a period of time is that they've taken the time to establish the characters so well that now they are functioning from a place where they are, they know what they want to do with them. Even when the storytelling gets a little complex or heavier, or, they're dealing with slightly intense, serious themes, they're able to pull it off. So I feel like with every season, the ambition of the show has grown bigger, right? So it's gone from being just a take on a relationship and being quirky, funny, to now really taking us through the sort of, finer points of what makes a relationship work. I also feel that in this season especially, and I think season 3 of Little Things is outstanding. It's one of the best Indian shows we watched this year in terms of an individual season, is also really well directed, because I feel the way they played with light, for example, when there are episodes where, for example, Kavya is visiting her folks in Nagpur and Dhruv is visiting his parents in Delhi, and the Nagpur bits have been shot in a certain light, which is bright and colorful and nice to look at, which goes with the tone of the show as well.
And how Kavya's feeling.
Not just that, I feel it's actually that's just how the show has been shot throughout. But the moment you cut to the Dhruv bits in Delhi, it's darker, grayer. It's probably also got to do with the city that it's set in. And I felt like maybe that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to show a difference between 2 cities. But even when he returns to Bombay, especially in the 8th episode, which is the finale of the show, is when I realized that they had begun to light situations that, or rather locations that you'd seen earlier on the show. Like, for example, Kavya's office, which was a lot brighter in the first 6 episodes. They managed to, dull it down and make it slightly darker in the finale. Similarly, that the house that they live in, which is sort of shot in a certain light, that's where they began to sort of reflect their state of mind through these little differences, which I think is very smart, sort of inputs, because they aren't exactly things that people always notice, but it makes a huge difference to the story that you're telling, right?
One of the things I also noticed that was different was, I think through season 1 and season 2, Dhruv was primarily like writing all the episodes, which is why maybe not consciously, it felt like everything that was happening on the show was more or less also always happening from a Dhruv lens.
You're right.
In
fact, I also felt
Mithila Palkar's character, Kavya, of course, she shares equal screen time and she's equally, you can't do the show without, the female actor being equally important in every sense of the word. But it's just that when there was a take on a relationship or when there was a more mature understanding of a situation, it always felt like it came from the man's point of view.
Yeah.
Which I think changed in season 3.
Yes.
I feel like the makers had an epiphany that we need to sort of now also let the female voice come out very strongly, which is why Kavya's episodes are so much more evolved in season 3.
Yeah, so they've got 3 new writers on board. So for the first 2 seasons, it was Dhruv basically taking on all writing responsibilities, which is absolutely fine because it's his show. I mean, it's his creation. And, it's nice to have a show where there is such a strong point of view coming through in the writing, and it doesn't really matter if it's a man's or a woman's. But you're right about the fact that I always felt, especially in the first 2 seasons, that this was a predominantly Dhruv-driven story.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, Mithila, in fact, her performance in season 3 is so good. And I also feel like her track, especially that Nagpur episode, I absolutely loved. Her interactions with her parents, the neighbors' dogs, her hanging out with an old friend who she's sort of reconnecting with after a number of years. I really got to see Kavya in a light that I had probably not seen in the first 2 seasons. And I think that happened because those episodes were written by, so what happened was that 3 more writers came on board and they split writing duties across the 8 episodes. So, and out of the 3 new writers, 2 of them happen to be women. They are Nupur Pai and Garima Pura Patiyalvi. And there was Abhinandan Sridhar, who was the 4th writer on the show along with
Dhruv. Yeah.
With Dhruv. So, yeah, you're right. I think it makes a big difference from bringing in a writer's room that is a mix of different genders and personalities, because then you're able to create a slightly more, sort of fully rounded show. And the one thing I realized about Little Things is that because it gets better with every season, your anticipation for a new season also grows. Of course, you and I watched it in a very short span of about 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we literally sort of have gone through 3 years of viewing in about a week.
Yeah, and that's because we were happy to follow the characters season after season, and we could tell the difference, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I feel like I now am personally looking forward to season 4 a lot. Like, I'm already wondering what are these guys going to come up with in the next season? Where are they going to take Dhruv and Kavya's relationship? And it's nice. It's nice to see an Indian show which is urban, which is about a slightly modern relationship from that point of view, and where you are just taking us through the various stages of the relationship without there being any serious baggage involved to it in any way whatsoever.
I mean, I think for you and me also, and for a lot of couples who've just started living in together or who've been living in together for a long time, even newly married couples, there's so much relatability in terms of the situations that these 2 guys find themselves in.
And I think that comes from the fact that this is actually what makes Little Things work the most is the fact that it is so relatable.
Yeah. It's the
fact that you can see those things happening, if not to you, then people around you. Like, I can imagine 2 guys who live in a house in Vadala paying a certain kind of a rent, then going to a slightly more affluent friend's place who's just bought a new house in Bombay. I mean, for our generation, buying a house in Bombay is probably like the conversation that nobody wants to have because they know there's no point in doing it, right?
So when someone from your group actually does it, your first question is like, "Kaise kiya tune? How much did you invest? What was the loan you took?"
Yeah, but I'm saying all those factors, whether you are unhappy with your careers or the fact that you're constantly looking to shift, or you want to switch paths and you basically quit your job, which is a very well-paying, steady job, and that uncertainty that comes with it. And of course, you and I related to it because we've been through that process over the last 7 years.
Yeah, I feel like that was one of that and the parents track. One was, of course,
or the fact that we are constantly, feeling guilty about the amount of time we spend with our parents or the lack of it.
Yeah, that's one of the tracks that's beautiful because, whether you're living in the same city as your parents or whether they live in a different city or different country from you, I think a lot of our generation suffers from that entire guilt of, do we spend enough time with our parents?
Yeah, because we are the first generation that broke out of the entire joint family format, right?
Yeah, and not just joint family format, also moving out of our homes at a much earlier
that's
age,
what I meant.
right?
Like,
whether it's for work, whether it's because we just wanted to live on our own, we moved out a lot earlier than our parents' generation did, where they were living with their parents till they got married or whatever. Most of us, I mean, at least you and I moved out when we were what, 23, 23 years old.
And actually so Kavya has this really good line where she says that while I was alone in Bombay, I was never really alone because I moved in with you immediately and you were always around. So my point is that you and I actually don't know what it would be to like to live alone.
Yeah, actually, Aniruddha and I are sailing in the same boat because after I moved out of my mother's house,
we both moved out of our parents' home to move in with each other.
Yeah.
So we have, even though we live without our parents, and then of course over the last 7 years, even something as simple as them dealing with their maids, or just keeping track of bills,
or wanting to contribute to each other's finances.
Yeah,
I think one of the things that I loved is that this show is very clear in the sense, like, Kavya is always earning more money than Dhruv.
Yeah,
and not just that, she's also a lot more clear about what her career goals are.
Yeah.
Dhruv, on the other hand, even though he's shown as this genius who knows all these weird facts, nerd, math student, all of that, is shown as someone who's struggling to find his path.
Yeah.
And hence is always financially finding himself in a soup.
And it becomes interesting in the Indian setup. If this was an American setup or a British setup, it would just not be as important as the fact that in an Indian setup where a man and a woman live together and the woman makes more money than the man. Also in a Bollywood movie, this would turn into like the most important track on the film.
It will become like Key and Ka, you mean?
No, it'll be the driving force. I'm saying that in our Indian, when I say Bollywood, I'm not like saying Bollywood versus OTT. I'm saying in our Indian way of thinking, it becomes a conflict point. It's like the woman's making more. That's the story. The way Little Things does it, and the reason it's such a great show is that it just shows these little things which don't ever become serious conflict points. It's almost like a collection of small things that keep happening that turn into something really big. I also thought season 3 was really nicely interwoven in the sense that if they had an argument or a fight in episode 2, they found a way to somehow do a callback or, tie it together in episode 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So I feel that that's the important part, that in a relationship, whether it's working or not working, it's never one thing that's a conflict point. There are a bunch of things that happen that make your relationship beautiful, and at the same time, it also makes the relationship, prone to be damaged in some way or the other, where the collection of all those things together, sort of accumulates and either becomes a sore point or becomes a winning point. So really realistic, really believable. I'm a fan.
Lots of moments where you'll relate. I mean, whether it is your friend coming to town and saying, "Hey, kya tu apni बीवी से कम या अपनी girlfriend से कम पैसा कमाता है?" or whether you're sort of struggling to say, where is my life heading and what is my future going to look like? I mean, the show is, whether it's about a love, just about like romance, or whether it's about thinking about your own future, your finances, your friendships, your relationships with your parents. It's a wholesome show. It's like, it's not the Kavya and Dhruv are just central to the plot, but around them also there are so many beautiful stories woven.
So yeah, Little Things is a show that I think everyone should check out. If as an Indian audience you have, maybe watched the pilot and the first couple of episodes and given up on it thinking that, it's not going anywhere, I think you really should stick around. And if you've never given it a chance because you feel that, there's so much to watch on Netflix, why watch an Indian show, really take time out and check Little Things out. It's a show that's completely worth the time spent on it. All 3 seasons are out on Netflix. You should totally check it out. And Janice and I will be talking about other stuff on the other side of this break.
Hey everybody, welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you aren't following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, quick reminder, please do fill out our survey. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. It's a listener survey. We're trying to understand more about who's listening to our stuff, what kind of things you would like to see from us in the future, what you have been seeing so far, what you think of it. what shows you like, all kinds of different stuff. Also who you are, right? So, I mean, like all kinds of different stuff. Just please do come in and fill it out. It would be really helpful. That's ivmpodcast.com/survey. I want to thank our sponsors this week, Cambly, Intel, and Storytel. Remember, sponsors are what make this stuff possible. So if you enjoy the content, please do thank our sponsors. We have 2 new shows releasing this week. Lakshmi Krishnan, better known as Literary Chills on Twitter, talks to agents of literary culture on her show Litnama. She plunges deep into new genres of literature born in the digital era as she talks to the performers, storytellers, bloggers, poets, and writers. New episodes are out every Tuesday from 10th December. The Traveling Professor's Diary is hosted by Siddharth Deshmukh. It's a show about a curious human being with an eagerness for travel and observation. He visits colleges such as MICA, SP Jain, Symbiosis, Flame, Upgrad, Talent Age, and spreads the digital gospel of design, marketing, and business transformation. Episodes are out every Tuesday and Thursday starting 10th of December. This week, The Seen and the Unseen celebrates its 150th episode. Amit is joined by publisher and editor V.K. Karthika. She talks about her journey of publishing and highlights the need of diversity in a publishing house. This week on IVM Likes, Abbas and Alika are joined by me, Amit Doshi, along with Pawan Srinath, who hosts our Pragati podcast, and Thale Arate. We discuss our favorite fantasy fiction movies, books, and everything else. Do tune in. It's quite a fun conversation. And we talk about all kinds of weird stuff. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet is joined by storyteller Anisha Dixit, better known as Rikshawali, and storyteller Tracy D'Souza, former channel head at TVF's Garlyapa. They talk about the future of women creators in India, how they work with brands, and how their teams perceive them as leaders. On Ganatantra, Saryu and Alok unpack what happened in Maharashtra after the assembly polls, and how the office of the governor has been misused to meddle in state politics. On Edges and Sledges, Ashwin, Varun and DJ focus on the India versus West Indies T20 series. On GBCD, Sunetro and Farhad talk about relationships and breakups as they share their experiences of navigating through the same and learn to acknowledge their feelings. It's a crossover on the Empowering series as Zarina is in conversation with Chetna, host of Positivity Unlimited. They talk about her shift from the corporate world to life coaching, about positivity and self-belief. On 9XM Soundcast, Eva is joined by Bollywood singer Benny Dayal. They talk about his experience of working with A.R. Rahman and some of his favorite composers in Bollywood. And with that, let's get on with your show.
And we are back. And every week since Janice and I started out, some of you send in comments, send in your recommendations, send in questions to Janice and me either on Twitter or on Instagram. And we thought today would be a good time to read some of those out. Before we start, we need to give out a shout out to Savar Suri, who's probably been the most diligent sort of person sending us comments regularly after episodes on Twitter especially. Savar, we read all your tweets and thanks a lot for all the feedback that you're sending us. Among some of the recent feedback we received on Twitter, we got a tweet from Sachin Jangam, and he's at Sachin Jangam 15, who said that you guys should check out the Crown Netflix podcast. It has all the behind-the-scenes action and interviews with the cast. Thanks a lot, Sachin. In fact, Janice and I are extremely geeky, at least I am, viewers who like to go back and read up and watch stuff based on what we are watching.
But I mean, for me, watching out and checking out BTS action means that I'll go to Instagram accounts that have been created by fans. Like there are multiple Crown Instagram accounts where you see like pictures of them from photo shoots, what they were doing behind the scenes, moments. But
what would be most interesting about the podcast is especially because the creator speaks about how he went through some of so there's one podcast where essentially he just looks at all the historical accuracy of the show, where the host essentially takes him through all the events that were shown in a certain season and how accurate or inaccurate they are, or the criticism coming his way for the lack of accuracy, and he kind of defends them and talks about them. So that should be a different kind of a conversation.
Sure, Sachin. I mean, we'll give it a try. Like I said, I don't know if I'll sit and listen to all of it, but just because you recommended it, we'd definitely try at least one episode and see what we think of it.
Yeah, and in addition to, in response to Janice talking about how Succession is probably the best show of 2019, Abhishek Trivedi, who's Abhitri99, at Abhitri99 on Twitter, has said that it's right there, especially after Chernobyl and Fleabag Season 2, which was some of the others that were close to the top spot.
Yeah,
which
man,
I think he's got it absolutely bang on, because Succession, Chernobyl and Fleabag
are probably our top
among
three.
Top five? It's in our top 5, and I would probably add, say, an Unbelievable in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's picked great shows. Abhishek, you've got great taste.
Yeah, this year is going to be so tough. I mean, if we have to do like an end of the year rating, oh my God, the number of shows we're going to want to include on that list. I mean, Boys will probably be on that list. Yeah, like you said, Unbelievable will be on that list. When They See Us will probably be on that list.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, these are great picks.
Yeah, and
Abhishek.
these are all shows that Janice and I have spoken about in the past, so you can go check some of our earlier episodes. Karthik O, who's at KO Cricket 528, has responded to, again, Janice's quote about the fact that in the next 6 months, there is going to be censorship that's going to hit the Indian OTT service. And he has said, I know it's around the corner, but really hope it doesn't happen. Why should anyone be concerned with what I watch in my private space? Yes, there are restrictions based on age, but as an adult who is fit enough to choose, the government for sure can decide what to watch. Karthik, we hear you, man. And we completely agree with you. And yeah, I mean, we definitely would like there to be no censorship, especially on the OTT space, especially because we are tired of going in to watch movies where when characters smoke, we have to read a line about how smoking is injurious to health, or where cuss words get beeped, and so on and so forth, or nudity or whatever else you want to call it. And I feel that finally storytellers are getting a chance to sort of narrate stories the way they want to on OTT platforms, and censorship there would be terrible, huh? Janice?
I don't even understand why some of the platforms are already giving it into it when it's not even official yet. I mean, like I remember watching stuff on Apple TV and we're constantly like, oh my God, they're self-censoring already.
That's how it began. I mean, you spoke about that on the episode that we did on the morning show, which is what Karthik is responding to. Yeah, but you're absolutely right.
And the thing is also, I mean, I don't see Netflix doing it though. I feel like only Amazon and Apple TV are doing it. I actually haven't observed. Does Hotstar do it as well?
Hotstar, I can imagine, because it's an Indian company at the end of the day.
I mean, there was so much nudity, for example, on Game of Thrones.
No, but they don't do it on their HBO shows.
Correct. So that must be part of the contract.
So they actually stand up to... no, I mean, they've bought HBO shows. You're right. So that's part of the syndication deal. They probably cannot censor beyond a point.
I mean, imagine watching Game of Thrones censored. Kuch samajh mein
everything from Game of Thrones to Entourage to Ballers on their HBO platform is just as it's meant to be. So I think it's really just a company line that you toe or not. Rajesh Nair, who is basically Rajesh Reghu Nair on Twitter, has sent Janice and me advice that we should take seriously Janice. He says that I'm a keen listener of your podcast.
Thank you.
Your recommendations determine my limited OTT watch.
Thank you.
So he's watching limited shows. We need to be careful of that. And the last episode on Apple Plus show was a bit tedious and a little frivolous on some pronunciation jokes. I keep telling you, Janice. I keep telling you, Janice. Don't try to be funny. People don't like it. Just come here, give your recommendations,
you know
go
what?
away.
Send a comment on whether you want us to be funny or not be funny.
And then he says, please stick to awesome reviews. You're great at... and from a super fan.
Oh, chal yaar. I mean, तूने super fan अपने आप को बोल दिया, then तो we can't even criticize
Thanks
you
a lot,
anymore.
Rajesh.
Thank you,
Rajesh. We are sorry because Janice has this habit of trying to turn everything into a joke, and it doesn't always land. But
my
yeah.
stand-up comedy career has come to an end.
But yeah, but thanks a lot for listening in, man. On Instagram, Tushu, who goes as @hitstushu, has sent us a message saying, have you heard about the show Years and Years on HBO? If not, just watch the first episode. It's a brilliant concept and amazing storyline, and also has Emma Thompson in it as a mad politician. Tushu, both Janice and me are huge Emma Thompson fans. Actually, I have heard of the show, but I haven't really gotten around to watching it. In fact, Janice and I haven't gotten around to watching a lot of shows that have been on our list of shows to watch. But thanks a lot for the recommendation. We have already added that to the list. And when we do watch it and, when we speak about it on the podcast, if we do, we'll make sure that we give you a shout out.
I'm just looking at some of the comments under the Succession post that had been put up by the IVM team. But strangely, when I shared that post and I did a poll, like, do you agree that Succession is the best show of 2019? Do you know that most people actually voted no?
Yeah, I mean, why should you? Because a best is a very extreme
I get it.
term.
I get it.
What if you love Succession, like f***ing love it, but it's still like another show more?
No. Like my choices were Hell Yeah, and the other one was like Kabhi Suna Nahi Hai. And most people were like Kabhi Suna Nahi Hai. So I'm just like, okay, clearly we are like harping about a show that actually might be very niche watching, you think?
Yeah, in India probably, but in the US it's huge now.
Yes, guys. If you haven't already, please, we are plugging Succession for the millionth time on Mr. and Mrs. Binge-Watch. मतलब ऐसा season 2 कभी देखा नहीं होगा.
And Shresh_S has said, "Hey Jan." And when he says Jan, he's not referring to Janice. Janice, the way he's written it, is J-A, uppercase A-N. So it's John.
Oh, so you're saying we're getting our own Safina moment.
We've got like a John thing going here.
Can't say
Thanks a lot,
Brangelina
Shresh,
anymore.
for that moniker. Hey John, huge fan. Do you feel a disconnect watching content on TV as opposed to mobile? I think the answer is that at least I do not watch content on TV.
So I'll tell you,
on the mobile.
Yeah, in our household, I'm actually okay to watch on any screen, and I've realized this. Like, I actually, for example, downloaded a lot of content and carried it with me when I was traveling abroad, and I watched all of it on my mobile phone.
Yeah, that's different.
No problem.
I think the only
I think you are more particular about wanting to watch it on a certain kind of a screen of a certain size. Like minimum, it has to be the laptop.
Yeah, if I have the option, not even a laptop. In fact, I mean, the only times we watched it on a laptop is when we didn't have any other option, or we didn't have a TV around. And watching it on the phone when I'm on a long flight, maybe. But actually, I've done it in the past. I've downloaded episodes of, like, I downloaded an entire season of BoJack Horseman when we were flying to Spain last year, but I didn't end up actually watching it, because when check out the in-flight entertainment on the flight, and at home, if you've got the option for the two of them, I'm obviously going to watch it on a TV
Aniruddha is
screen.
always the first person to find, those things that allow you to sync it to your TV or project it onto your TV. He's always the first person to find the apps, even if our TV is not sometimes compatible.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
But can I just tell you
casting apps.
Yeah, casting apps. But can I tell you what was the last thing I watched on my mobile, like, when I was traveling?
Cheers to that with Janice.
No, shut up. Stop plugging my show. No, I actually carried episodes of Sacred Game Season 2, and I would use it as the best way to fall asleep at night, because like half an hour of the Season 2 episodes, especially towards the end, I would sleep in the first 10 minutes.
Okay.
And like Sadhuji, or what is his name? Yeah, Guruji is going on. Guruji is going on. I've gone off to sleep.
Guruji ka pyar is on in the background, and you are like
I've
snoring
fallen
away.
asleep, yeah.
Amazing. So that was us responding to comments coming in on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks a lot to all the people who send in their, recommendations or suggestions. Please continue to do that.
Yeah, we'd like to do this more week on week, because we feel like, that also would help us discover shows and content that we've not watched. And maybe we can suggest a few more shows that we don't necessarily always talk about on the episodes.
So send in your, you've got the IVM podcasts handle on both Instagram and Twitter, and of course Janice and me are on both platforms as @JaniceSec85 and @AniGoha.
So, and of course, if you want to listen to other such interesting podcasts on the IVM network, well, just go to the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. Ani and I will see you next time with lots more binge-watching content. Bye.
Bye.
घड़ी की टिक टिक के बीच अब वक्त हो चुका है टपरी पे मिलने का, चाय या कॉफी के साथ टपरी टेल्स सुनने का। सोचिए, अगर आपकी मम्मी, अक्का, दादी, नानी, जीजी, आजी भी आपके साथ इस चाय की टपरी पे एक चुस्की लेने आ जाए तो कैसी बातें होंगी? उनकी कहानियाँ कितनी नई या पुरानी होगी? एक्चुअली ना, टपरी पे पहली बार ये उनकी जुबानी होगी। तो मिलिए इन नए किरदारों से हर गुरुवार टपरी टेल्स पर। चाय की प्याली, एक नई कहानी with Madhuri Advani on IVM Podcast app, website or wherever you get your podcast from.
Advertising is dead. Yep, you heard me right. Advertising is dead. We're all in the content business now. Let's not call it news, TV, radio, etc., etc. It's all content, and we're in the middle of this weirdly exciting phase where all the borders and lines that have been drawn over decades has been swept away by this lovely thing called the internet. We're a show where we don't dwell on just the stuff that is now, but rather the wider stuff about advertising, media, content, and the whole goddamn circus surrounding it. Tune in every Tuesday for our weekly unboxing of the mystery box we used to call advertising. I'm Varun Dugirala, co-founder and content chief at The Glitch, and this is my new podcast, Advertising is Dead.